think in the next 12, 24 months, you're going to see more opportunities for acquisitions? Or do you think that's going to kind of stay as it's been? Or should I maybe back up and say, during the last 2 years, did you guys see more activity in terms of folks wanting access to money? Or did you kind of guys just kind of see things kind of level out? I know there was a lot of legislative incentives out there to help folks kind of manage through COVID, but how did you guys, activity wise, what did you guys see as far as hotel lending or possibilities of acquisition during the last 2 years?
So over the last 2 years, clearly there's been a lot of legislation or legislative help that help bring capital into the lodging industry through PPP and some of the other programs that help to provide some level of liquidity to help hotel groups through the pandemic. I think you've noticed over the last 24 months, I mean really going back 12 months, especially 12, 18 months ago, there was very few lenders willing to lend in the hospitality space. I think the number of lenders willing to lend today is starting to grow again, but there is still at a much lower level of the number of lenders willing to lend to hotels today compared to where we were pre-pandemic. So there's still a huge gap of lenders willing to lend into the hospitality space, and that's why the company that we own called Stonehill has been very successful over the last 18 months, because we've been sort of filling that void where we're going in and financing not only new construction projects that different developers are trying to execute on the hotel side, but we're actually helping finance groups that need to recapitalize existing hotels or to even provide acquisition financing for hotel ownership groups that are looking to acquire hotel properties. And so we've been very successful, just given the fact that there are very few lenders willing to lend, although there is more capital today on the debt side for hotels than there was 18 months ago. So I think it's there's no question there's more liquidity in the marketplace today on the debt side, and you're starting to see the cost of capital come down as well, especially given you're starting to see you're starting to have more clarity on just how the recovery is going to play out with lodging. So I think more lenders are getting comfortable on how they're going to underwrite cash flows on a go forward basis. And sort of going back to your original question, just on the acquisition side, I do believe because over the last 18 months it's been a very challenging market to buy hotels, because although everyone, or I would say most hotel ownership groups have experienced some level of disruption of cash flows or maybe even distress at some level. Most groups are probably through the worst of that piece of it today, but most groups were well capitalized enough where they didn't have to sell hotels at these deep discounted levels back in the back at the beginning of this
Right.
Pandemic. And so we there wasn't really a lot of assets to buy at cheap or distressed pricing is what we saw over the last 18 months.
Right.
Because there wasn't a lot of certainty until the last 6 months. We felt like it didn't really make sense to be an active buyer of hotels until like 6 months ago. So over the last 6 months, we've been very active on acquiring hotel properties. We believe there's going to be more opportunities to acquire more hotels over the next 6 to 12 months, just given the fact that a lot of hotel groups are hotel ownership groups are facing fatigue from the pandemic. You have a lot of lenders that are putting pressure on hotel owners to refinance their loans that are maturing. That's going to create more pressure for potential asset sales. And the other factor is just the need for hotels in general today are probably in the worst capex position of all time, because most hotel owners and operators have deferred out capex projects in order to shore up liquidity. So the brands are starting to mandate PIPs that they've delayed. Hotels need to have more capex projects completed, and as ownership groups are faced with injecting capital for these renovations, a lot of them are going to make the decision, we believe, over the next 6 months, and what we're starting to see over the last couple of months, to sell
Right.
the hotel versus invest back into the asset. So we think it's going to be a very interesting environment to be buying hotels over the next 6 to 9 months.